I've said it's a little bit quiet at the back. Is this loud enough? All right. Politicians are even worse in the bedroom than they are in the boardroom. And this is something I got more than a passing interest in because I'm actually staying at a politician's flat tonight. But I think the question that we really need to ask is why would politicians be bad at all? And the reason is that we have given them a monopoly on using legal, physical coercion of all of us, in the hope that they will use that power to protect us from the arbitrary coercion of the thugs and bullies that have spread so much misery for thousands of years of human history. And unfortunately, for the most part, they tend to abuse that power and actually use it to impose more thuggery and more bullying on us. All of us, of course, are special and should be able to flourish in self-chosen ways, but you know, you just have to look at this city as just thriving and teeming with little wannabe philosopher kings who use the pronoun we for first, second and third person, singular and plural, and they all conceitedly demand that only they should rule. Well, Friedrich Hayek gave us the alternative, and that is that we should each exist in a sphere of liberty, a metaphorical space in which we can go about and plan the future of our lives without the arbitrary coercion of another or others. And the question is, where do politicians most often penetrate our sphere of liberty? Is it in the boardroom, or, as I hope not, in the bedroom? Now, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who screwed up everything for 34 million of my closest Canadian friends, said that the state has no business in the bedrooms of the nation, he was referring particularly to homosexual law reform at that time in Canadian history. But as our friend here Paul has said, it is a metaphor, and we define it to be all personal issues to do with the human body. And politicians in the boardroom are interfering with our material possessions, our day-to-day business outside of the body. And let me say that these personal matters are important matters, and we agree to a large extent with what these guys have said about the value of those matters. But while they may be important, they are not urgent in New Zealand today. They are a priority because as a practical matter, or as a matter of legislation, politicians are not violating our sphere of liberty on the personal basis. If we have a look at where the momentum of people's freedoms are going, we are actually becoming freer all the time in terms of our personal liberties. There is less and less government discrimination in terms of sexuality. Homosexual law reform is now almost as old as me. I remember in 2005 being the only right-wing candidate in Mount Albert in favour of civil unions, which is also now law. Abortion as a technical matter is actually very difficult, but there are such wide loopholes that so many practitioners are happy to exploit that as a practical matter, we practically have abortion on demand, and no politicians are going to try and change that anytime soon. Cannabis and other drugs, technically again, are illegal. But with 400,000 Kiwis, according to the Law Commission, having smoked cannabis in the last year, we can hardly say that you don't have that choice. To the extent that there is an incursion on our sphere of liberty around cannabis, it's actually an economic matter. It's a question of the market structure. It's a question of the market being a black market rather than an open one. And of course, when it comes to the questions of freedom of speech, thought, religion and assembly, Freedom House has given us a perfect score of 1 every single year since they started taking records in 1972. So if the bedroom is relatively free of politicians' penetrations and getting freer, then what of the boardroom, the business, the possessions, the way that we use those things? And when it comes to going about our business beyond the immediacy of the body, we are not only in a bad state, but we're getting worse. 46% of all income earned by New Zealanders is appropriated by politicians and spent in ways that many of us would not choose individually. It's like getting a pint of beer and having 276 mils taken out, and yes, they do give you a few services, but it's kind of like getting a few shots of crappy apple juice as a replacement. Now, of course, You know, what is that apple juice? Well, it's a socialist monopoly in education. Socialist, owned by the state. The capital assets and the operating budget controlled by politicians, and it's a monopoly. High barriers to entry, no real choice in competition in that area. In the business of education, the sphere in which we can practice our liberty is vanishingly small, and we can make the same arguments for healthcare, for income security, i.e. welfare, and for retirement or pensions. We can see even more in terms of property rights. The Local Government Act, the Bill of Rights, the RMA take no real serious concern for our ability to use property that we've acquired. Don Brash and I visited a farmer a few weeks ago who built a barn for $13,000. He had to pay $5,000 to buy off those uber-conceited Platonist philosopher kings, the worst of all, the urban planners, so that he could build his $13,000 barn. I don't know what 5 divided by 18 is, but the percentage is too high. And when you consider that regulation is a form of partial government ownership, it's probably true that the size of the state is greater than the 46% I quoted. It's actually probably more than half of all of our economy. And after a brief respite, thanks to Sir Roger, we now have gone back to government setting up banks, buying airlines and train sets. Milton Friedman once said that our bulk funding system was like having every school as a charter system, but now we're back to the socialist monopoly again. We once had Ruth Richardson's ECA, we now have the collectivist ERA. Our Treaty of Waitangi, which is a great libertarian document that says everyone is equal before the law, is being renegotiated by Mr. Farrer's party into a partnership between two collectives along collectivist lines. Folks, personal liberties are important, but the way things are going, they are not urgent right now. Not only are politicians currently worse in the boardroom than they are in the bedroom, but there are systematic reasons why that is, which Hugh and Stephen will soon explain. As Hugh will have it, personal life, personal liberties, by definition happen closer to the person, and more often in the privacy of homes and private places than do business transactions. For this reason, it is a natural bias for politicians to try and police business transactions rather than personal transactions, because it's just easier for them to do, and they're congenital interferers, they can't help themselves, they're always going to go for the easiest liberties to curtail. As Stephen will argue, there are some systematic reasons why political calculus faced by all politicians guides them to... Oh, we're gone? Okay, well look folks, these guys are going to explain it anyway. At the moment, and I hope this is true, politicians are much worse in the boardroom than they are in the bedroom. Thank you.